I'm the hunter. It's a big difference.
The long-awaited state visit by Donald Trump to the UK took place today at Windsor Castle, as follows.
The nervous host looked out as his overnight guest landed on his lawn. The Prince and Princess of Wales were sent to welcome President Trump and the First Lady. "So beautiful, you're so beautiful," the President said. Members of Donald Trump's cabinet looked on, Secretary of State Mark Rubio filming the moment the President was welcomed by the King. Royal carriage processions are at the heart of all state visits, a chance for the public to see the splendour, wave flags and cheer. But this one was conducted in private. Security reasons were cited, but the British state was throwing every bit of soft power it could muster to tame this most unpredictable and volatile of presidents. Hostile crowds could not be risked. Instead, a guard of honour protected him from trees. Only cattle could witness the spectacle. President Trump has an outsized appetite for pomp and military theatre. The government was determined he wouldn't go home hungry. The government said it had laid on more military personnel for this state visit than ever before. The sort of statistic, as they well know, this president savours and often then enhances. The King then led the President into Windsor Castle for lunch. One who's worked with Charles in the past said it was hard to believe he wouldn't take a moment to try to nudge the President's thinking, which on so many areas is poles apart from his own. You worked for the King before he was King. Back then, we might have expected Charles to say something to Donald Trump about drill, baby, drill and other elements of his non-green agenda.
Whether it's going to be about drilling and climate change, or whether it's going to be about, do not allow yourself to be led by the nose by President Putin over Ukraine, I don't know.
But you wouldn't be surprised.
I would not exclude the possibility that there will be some useful and frank conversations between these two great men.
After lunch, the President was shown the royal collection. The political discussions come tomorrow at Chequers, and the government's own national security advisor last weekend revealed in a rare on-camera moment one of the biggest focuses will be trying to get this president to pressurise President Putin with tough sanctions.
President Trump is coming on a state visit to the United Kingdom this week, and certainly one of the subjects that will be very much in the discussion, I think, is how to apply pressure on President Putin. I think there's every sign that President Trump is getting increasingly fed up with Putin messing him around, playing him along and not actually moving forward. And the question is, has he now reached the stage where he's prepared to put that pressure on?
The President said to a cameraman, "Make sure you make me look good." He's proudly shown off albums of his previous meetings with the Queen. Photos were forbidden when he laid a wreath at her tomb in St George's Chapel.
So we have 11 British models. It's very special for us to look after. It's a lot of history. It's a lot of history. It is.
Tomorrow, the government will be hoping it can leverage all this flattering royal access in talks, not least on trade.
The United Kingdom got a better deal than others did when Keir Starmer went to the Oval Office. But it's not yet finished business. There's still more work to be done in that area.
Nailing that down will be a big part of those
we've
talks.
done okay on aerospace, we've done okay on automotive, but there's plenty of other sectors which are affected. And let's not forget, they are all in worse shape than they were before Donald Trump started his tariff wars at the beginning of the year.
The evening will end with a state banquet. The ghost at the feast was projected onto the castle last night. Jeffrey Epstein, once a friend to Donald Trump.
Before I go, I'd like to have a quick word from our video sponsors, which are smalldebts.co.uk. They will help you out if you've been scammed online or need somebody who knows what they're doing to get you out of a difficult situation to do with finances, on the internet, etc. Smalldebts.co.uk. The information will be in the description.
Struggling to get your security deposit back or dealing with unfair charges? At Small Debts, our tenant advocate service fights to get your money back. No stress, no hassle. Take control today. Visit smalldebts.co.uk and start your case now.
Back to Donald Trump's long-planned controversial visit to Prince Charles' state visit, the second one to the UK, and to spend some time with our monarchy with all the pomp and ceremony that took place. This wasn't as public as his first visit due to safety concerns, but it seemed to go off without a hitch, if not slightly closeted. Let me know what you think in the comments, and like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. You can hear with myself, Owen, you ready at CornerSpeak. Be good, be safe, be creative. Catch you on the next one.
He actually said during the campaign they had a hat, the best-selling hat. Trump was right about everything. And I don't say that in a braggadocious way, but it's true. I've been right about everything.
That was braggadocious.
Now, psychologists will, for decades to come, have a field day with that, trying to understand how it is possible for one man...
Donald Trump is a consummate salesman. He's a pro. If a leaf blows past him, he's going to fold that into selling something or the other. So you got to take some things with that in mind. Take some of what he says with that in mind.
Teleprompter failing as he began to read his meandering, bile-riven speech. A normal person would have shrugged their shoulders and worked through those issues, but not this bloke, even when he was justifiably complaining about the UN's failure to live up to its goals, protecting civilians in harm, promoting peace. Even then, he just couldn't let go.
I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing.
They probably didn't know he had ended those wars at that point in time. It hadn't been tweeted out.
The deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle, and then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the 2 things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
I mean, what can you say, apart from the fact that he did not, in fact, end 7 wars? Never mind the manners of the farmyard that he has exhibited towards the royal family and the Prime Minister. He is now demanding that the UN launches a formal investigation of what he claims was triple sabotage of his visit to New York. The third sin was, he falsely asserts, an underperforming sound system in the hall that he claims meant people couldn't hear his speech. They should have been so lucky.
Yeah, all that happened. In the end, though, for reasons we'll talk about with our very New York accented political panel tonight, the 2 men appear to have decided that, at least for now, it is better for their constituents and themselves to be seen as the kind of unlikely pair, maybe, that only a city like New York can produce. That said, some of the moments today were truly remarkable.
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought.
I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
So we're going to work together.
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Okay. Yeah. It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job. I'll be cheering for him.
Didn't mention anything about America or...
I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually, and some very liberal people. I think I met with a man who's a very rational...
This morning, like we said, the DOJ released almost 30,000 new Epstein files. The department also issued a statement that read, "Some of these documents contain untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump that were submitted to the FBI right before the 2020 election. To be clear, the claims are unfounded and false, and if they had any shred of credibility, they certainly would have been weaponized against President Trump already. Nevertheless, out of our commitment to the law and transparency, the DOJ is releasing these documents with the legally required protections for Epstein's victims."
Yes, just see how it's being covered by at least one of the US networks, TYT. Without further ado, let's get into it.
The latest batch of Epstein files contain passages so damaging to President Donald Trump that his Department of Justice came out to call them fake news.
So much of it, and there's some stuff in there that's just total bogeys. and it makes you wonder about the rest. So that's why it's hard to reach definitive conclusions on any of these.
Reacted to Europe's reaction, which you can also call pretty drastic. I mean, in a way, it's quite a shrewd maneuver to send troops over to Greenland in a multilateral way, and for all the different countries to contribute. The funny thing is, from what I understand, the UK have sent one soldier, which I guess is symbolic, to join the group of the European force that has been assembled and sent over to Greenland. And it kind of makes sense. It doesn't seem to me as a outwardly unnecessarily aggressive stance to take. From the point of view of NATO, it has a responsibility, and it has a place already. It has already has a position in Greenland. They already have troops over there. They already have bases over there, and they already have a responsibility to protect the island if they were ever to be attacked by anyone, mainly Russia or China or anyone who may have non-positive intentions for the island. Now, I get it where Donald Trump comes from. If you're gonna sort of take him at his word and take the US at their word when they talk about national security interests. So yes, this is true. Where Greenland is positioned is crucial to the Western allies and the USA's national security. And with climate change, which I don't think Donald Trump believes in, the melting of the icebergs, it has and will be opening up new shipping lanes, from what I understand, which is going to change the landscape geographically over time. So these are probably some reasons that Greenland is gaining increasing importance in the scheme of things now. And why not 10 years ago? Why not 15 years ago? I mean, why weren't we having these conversations about Greenland? Why wasn't it so sought after? You could say it's taken someone like Donald Trump to step in and see the value of this very sparsely populated island over there, very close to the North Pole. From what I understand, it's about 63,000 people live on the island, and most people are populated along the shoreline, along the coast. And that's also where a lot of the rare materials that can be found on the island can be located. They also say that a lot of these rare materials can be found in other parts of the world, are very difficult to extract from Greenland, and in some cases, be it the oil, gold, or other rare minerals, particularly the type that are needed for the computer manufacturing and that sort of a thing, they can be found miles down into the land. So anyway, coming back to the recent events that has stirred everything up, stirred the pot, with Europe actually taking action of a sort rather than just doing what they normally do or we normally do, is a lot of conversation and actually sending a symbolic group of defense troops, however you describe them, over to the island. I mean, on one hand, it shouldn't really be such a strange sight or strange action for the Europeans to take, as that's the responsibility they already have and have had for years. And I get it, it's a show of support for Denmark, like symbolically to say that we're with you, you're not on your own, be it the fact that you're a small island, you're not on your own. If things did heat up, we've got your backs, and we're going to act as a united force. And it's true, as Donald Trump has reminded the world, and in this case, particularly Europe, of late, that, you know, the United States Army is probably one of the most modern, strongest, and well-funded forces on the planet. Although it doesn't mean to say that, you know, these smaller countries and NATO members, when they get their act together and actually come together, cannot pose a problem to any aggressor, or cannot stand as a very strong form of support if they were defense, if a NATO country was to really be attacked. The thing that really spins it upside down and around is the fact that these are allies, yeah? These are supposedly a group of friends. You have one bigger, stronger, tougher friend who's been more proactive and has more grander ambitions than the other members of the group. Or, you know, with all that said, this is supposed to be a group of friends, and a group of friends that have always, on paper, acted together. So this is where it gets very twisted. So if you got this group of friends and they're unable to sort out their differences in the usual, more peaceable way, and now there's threats of, obviously, you know, last resort, which seems to be brought to the table as a first resort, where you're going to take military action to prove your point or accomplish your goal. And that is what Donald Trump has been quite openly threatening. And now, with the action Europe has taken, the threat has been reciprocated by this European action, and reciprocated by Trump's action with the tariffs. Hopefully it's not going to be the start of a trade war, and that's where I would say Starmer, at least in the last 24 hours, has rose to the occasion, and he's pretty much like held a strong, balanced position, with the fact that he hasn't gone off and dived straight in like some may have wanted him to do, with, right, you hit us, we're going to hit you back, because that's not really going to end well for the UK. It ain't going to end well for Europe. That doesn't mean that they haven't got a position and, you know, a position that they can defend and a point that they can quite aggressively make if necessary. It just means that in terms of going off in the direction of a tariff war, yeah, it's better than a physical war, militarily speaking, though I don't think we're at that stage yet. It might seem like it is. So Europe has reacted now to all this back and forth and banter that's been going on for quite some time now, at least in recent weeks, and they've made a sort of display, show of force, not so much chest beating. They've pretty much just said that, you know, we gotta like deal with this from a more balanced position. And also, I think if they didn't react in this way, we'd be going down the road of appeasing. And, you know, it's a kind of odd context as we're, again, talking about allies. So there should be more room for agreement here. Where it kind of falls off, I think, in Donald Trump's argument, if you're looking at it rationally, that anything America may need that they don't already have in terms of national security, that they may need from Greenland, they can have. They can, you know, have increased bases. From what I understand, they had over 13 bases on the island from the end of World War II, and they had, well, multiple bases, and they shut down 10 plus, I think around 13 of those bases, and remain in one. So if they want to like reopen bases, expand bases, come up with some new defensive structure, as a leading part of NATO, there's nobody standing in their way. I would say, though, in Donald Trump's defense, every time he's acted in this type of way, not just in terms of Greenland, but also in terms of giving the NATO team a kick up the behind, is kind of got NATO to wake up from their slumber and realize that they've got to invest more. They've got to kind of hold up their end of the bargain more than they have been, because, you know, they've been asleep on the job pretty much. I don't think they're asleep right now, but they have been asleep on the job previously. So better late than never. They're now realizing that in some key instances, they're going to have to find a way to take the lead and represent their bloc. You know, it's going to never be the size of America's, you know, defensive bloc. Although if they are part of a team, you put the NATO countries together, the vast majority of them, and you've got quite a large defensive group. So anything the US wants, they can have. So this is obviously not just about national security. It's becoming more and more clear that this is just about conquest. It's about expansion. Because if you're talking about just putting your flag on a sovereign territory, so you can now say this is now part of this country, rather than, you know, we're already, we've got our bases on your island, we already work with you, we're already part of the same team, and that's not good enough, then, or that's not enough, then, yeah, it becomes more and more obvious that what you're really asking for is ownership. You want to be able to say pretty much, this is mine. Now, the question is, to what extent is Donald Trump, President of the USA, prepared to take this and we all know he's not somebody who easily takes no as an answer. And coming from sales, being a businessman, property developer, etc., someone who's used to acquiring and having things done his way, yeah, it's going to take some smart juggling to settle this openly and behind the scenes in a way that everybody looks like they're getting what they want. Because I don't think Donald Trump loses face easily. And the fact that it's been played out on social media, I mean, we don't really know what's going on in the background till some of it leaks out into the mainstream. Can only hope that there's a smart enough group of people on both sides to temper things and, you know, come up with something that sounds so, you know, no parties, particularly on the US side, appear to be losing face. Because, you know, even on that superficial looking level, it can lead to a disastrous outcome when words are put out there and have to be backed up and, you know, matched by another action or reaction. So Donald Trump wants Greenland because he wants it. If the Greenlanders choose not to sell their island, which is their democratic right, if democracy still has any part to play. I mean, international law for the last X amount of years, with the wars that's been going on, it's kind of tricky to see where that really holds its traditional weight, because, you know, many countries have appeared to not really follow the same rules they've been preaching to everybody else. So I know about that one. Obviously, we know we're in the might is right phase. To what degree, we're learning by the day. So, yeah, Donald Trump wants Greenland, and Europe, Denmark is not prepared to relinquish their, you know, whatever kind of ownership they have historically had for the island. Funny thing is, this isn't such a new flex from Europe, because if you look in the history, they've always historically grouped up at different points in time, different countries, be it the Russians, the Dutch, the British against Napoleon, you know, the going against the French, or the French and, you know, somebody else, the British and somebody else, the French against the Spanish, or, you know, they've always had this grouping up thing. So that's not totally foreign to the equation. It's just, it's happening now, and it's happening amongst this big group of friends, i.e. NATO, and, you know, America increasingly looking like they're isolating themselves, being the aggressor, you got China there to the side looking on, Russia active still looking on. How do you come back from this, whichever way it goes, unless it really tempers down to a global way of doing things where you can turn around and say, well, these are the good guys, and you can't just walk into somebody's space and backyard and say, right, that's mine now because I have a bigger footprint and a larger body mass. I can just nudge you out the way. If that isn't supposed to be the rules that we live by on this globe, if that is acceptable and a stance isn't taken like Europe has just done, then I guess we're at risk of being in that space where it's completely might is right, and that is really a rabbit hole I don't think anybody wants to, apart from some, go down in a hurry, because I believe that goes in the direction of, compared to what we are supposed to be practicing, form of democracy, goes in the kind of anarchic kind of a direction. So yeah, this stuff is very baffling and easy to understand on another level. The bigger dude wants what he wants. The smaller dude thought he was a mate of the bigger dude, and now the only thing that could probably save, exposed to the elements here, save the day is if, as they say, cooler minds prevail, and an understanding can be arrived at, because it's more than just Greenland, I think. This is really about, if you do nothing now, from Europe's perspective, there might be no stopping this roller coaster type movement. So, if one country can say, well, I want this because it's of national security interests and strategic value. So what's stopping China looking at Taiwan and saying, well, it's of national security interests, or we want to, step into our neighbour's backyard and take that as our own? What's to stop, Russia's argument that their borders were, they were at risk of NATO getting too close to their borders, and, they made their move based on national security. You see where I'm going with this? So if the supposed good guys can abandon the previous way of doing things and go down that might is right route, you can't really turn around and preach to, others in that same said arena and tell them that what they're doing is wrong when they do exactly the same said thing you've just demonstrated. So I'm going to leave it here for now. This is going to really grow and build throughout the day. I just wanted to say a few things on this story, and I'm going to follow it up, and I'll be probably going live later when I get indoors from the CornerSpeak studio space. I just want to do a quick shout out to the video sponsors. Small debts. If you are having any kind of problems with your money, particularly like online, or if you've been scammed, or if you've had to pay a bill that you weren't rightfully supposed to pay, and you need somebody to step in on your corner and defend you and get that money repatriated. If it's a rent deposit you need repatriated, and the estate agent or landlord, whoever, are reluctant to pay you that money, and at the end of your tether, Small Debts can step in your corner and help you sort out those issues. Too busy to chase invoices, they can do it for you. One-off credit control action emails, they can automate that for you. Credit control management or full self-service invoicing and collection, all done. And they also give you a free initial assessment of your case, and they'll take it from there. Smalldebts.co.uk, their information's in the description. Look them up. Have a brilliant day if you can. Thank you for spending some time here with myself, Onyu here at CornerSpeak, on the go. I will see you soon. Oh, let me know what you think about this hoo-ha. Drop your comments in your views and opinions in the comments. I like to read them and get back to you as soon as I can. And also, if you haven't yet subscribed, hit the bell icon. I'll catch up with you soon on your radio here at CornerSpeak. Be good, be safe, and be creative. For now, I'm out.
Just crosses every line of just basic human decency to me. Rob Reiner was murdered last night. Whatever side of the divide you're on, this is just unacceptable.
I don't care what you think of that war. There is no justification, there's no reason for mowing down Jews.
But the Israelis say, no, we're allowed to kill 20,000 kids. And no one should be able to condemn that. But every Muslim on planet Earth have to condemn these lunatics as if these lunatics represent us.
Ken, I think it's very immoral that you couldn't just take one conversation about a shooting in Australia without comparing it to a war in Gaza.
90% of Muslims are peaceful and lovely and amazing, but if 10% wants to bring down the West, you're looking at a heck of a lot of people.
Jillian, I've had to sit here and listen to y'all go back and forth. Can I please?
Unprecedented is how this is being described, because no other United States of America president has had their home searched by the FBI. Whilst he wasn't here at Mar-a-Lago and had nothing to say to the cameras, Donald Trump took the time to express exactly how he felt in a lengthy statement, calling the presence of FBI agents in his house a raid, a siege of his home, not necessary or appropriate, and condemned the process as prosecutorial misconduct.
This is Mar-a-Lago, Donald Trump's primary residence, and where the FBI executed its search warrant. To my left are Trump supporters who are here to vocalize their support for Donald Trump and his potential to run for president in 2024.
The American people are awake. We are not woke. We are awake. We know what's going on. It was a fishing expedition.
We have to stand up for our rights and our freedoms because they're being eroded.
I hope you like that. There's a lot going on with Donald Trump. As we all know, he's always in the media, and Epstein. So more of those files to be dropped and broken down. Stick with CornerSpeak. Myself, UADA. We're always here. And for now, as I'd like to say, as I usually say, be good, be safe, be creative. We're out. Oh, remember to hit the notification bell if you haven't yet subscribed, and leave your comment in the comment section. We're out.